Okay, so we have started the recording, and I just want to mention a few updates before we have a chat with Mango Wodzak. And as people know, Mango Wodzak is, I guess you can call one of the only Eden fruitarians in the world. Now, before we get started, he's going to tell you all about Eden fruitarianism. But basically, before we get started with the interview, which is just basically a general discussion of what's going on, how we can really progress to, vegan, raw vegan world, how we can get, what's happening with this in this lockdown pandemic, whatever we want to call it, and how we can, progress in this movement or this, like basically a natural way of living. So my soul path partner and myself, we are working right now on community, basically creating a plan for our community. Vegan, raw vegan, homesteading community, which is basically an intentional community. And there's a lot that I want to say, but I just don't want to say much now. But we're looking really into getting land for 2021. So that's a good thing that's happening. We also have Evolution Diet pet food. So if you have any companion animals, which, of course, I have a very, very different view, as Mango does, very different view of pets and owning animals and seeing them, people think they see their companion animals as guardian, as family members or things like that, and they're the guardians. But, this is very, very, very much muddled. And sometimes we got to go really deep to understand what is the relationship between us and other animals. But in case you do have companion animals, pets, dogs, and cats, Evolution Diet is really the pet food for you. They're the first company that started having vegan dog and cat food. So they're very ethical people. They're very nice, wonderful friends of mine. Go to petfoodshop.com to learn more about them and find out what they're all about. So there's a lot going on also with my books and things like that. A lot of updates. If you want, please do sign up for the newsletter to learn all about me. I haven't really been active too much on YouTube or social media. I've been really not on the computer as much as I used to. So I'm really focusing now on creating this community, this raw vegan community, and also learning from other communities. So we're going to be traveling to Ecuador most likely and going to some raw vegan communities there and just learning about what's happening and how to create a community, as well as many videos online and through books. We're learning just like a lot. And I've been doing this for many, many years, planning for this, but actually getting the land is like really crucial because I know how we really need to create this vegan world. So, Mango, thank you so much for being here. I really, really appreciate it.
Pleasure. Always glad to be here.
Right.
Glad to chat with you.
Right. So once again, tell us your vision and the vision of Eden fruitarianism and your books.
Sure. Well, Eden fruitarianism is a term that I've coined myself. In a way, I've done so to distinguish it from fruitarianism, which is basically, under most descriptions, it's a diet. But Eden fruitarianism is more than that. It's taking veganism one step further, and it's about creating a world which is more in harmony and with less harm being caused on the planet. So basically, it's a philosophy with a vision. And the end goal of that vision is to recreate or to create, maybe for the first time, a kind of Eden on earth, a haven for all beings where nobody is harmed. Kind of like the biblical prophecies that say, on my mountain no harm shall be done. So, yeah.
Right. And some people who are vegan will say, why go eating fruitarian? I love my cooked food. I love gourmet meals, and I love my raw gourmet meals, and I love this and I love that. Veganism is an ethical standpoint. Why go further?
Because even though veganism is an ethical standpoint, there's always room for improvement. And one of the things that vegans do, they always focus on the main thing that they're doing which is causing harm, is eating grains. And grains go very much against nature. They go against the biodiversity, which is natural rule of the planet, really, that wherever there's things growing, there's multiple plants and animals living all together in one place. But when you focus on monocrops, you have to, by necessity, destroy habitat of wildlife. The farmers will also destroy wildlife themselves, the sick, the lame, the elderly, the ones that can't outrun their tractor blades. They will get killed. So even though veganism is a hugely important step to take, and it kind of takes the focus away from the factory farming that's being imposed upon animals, it's still not enough really to totally free animals from our naked grasp, as it were, that we have on the planet. So the monocrops is one thing, not cooking is another thing. Really, people, I agree, people say, oh, they want their cooked food and they think they're doing enough, but what they don't really realize is that it's the addictiveness of cooked food and how difficult it is to break free of that. And addiction is not good for anybody on any level, physically, mentally, spiritually.
But eating fruit, some people would say that would be addiction because we love the taste of fruit. So we just keep eating fruit.
The thing with addiction is there's always a negative side effect to it. When you're eating fruit, there is no negativity.
Right.
So
right, I see.
And you're not gonna. If I don't eat a certain fruit for a while, I'm not gonna be craving it the same way as an addict would.
Right. So in Australia, how's everything going there, generally speaking, in 2020?
Well, it depends on where you are in Australia. I think Victoria is not faring very well at all. The state of Victoria has seen huge lockdowns imposed on them and restriction of movement. And they've been told what they should and shouldn't do.
And sorry, what does this lockdown exactly mean? Are they really like locked down in their houses, or can they go out? Or
well, they can't leave the state. That's the big thing. They're not allowed to travel outside of their state. And I do believe that in some places they're not even allowed to travel 50 kilometers from their home or some particular set of kilometers number. I'm not exactly sure how many it is.
Okay.
But I think it really depends. There have been different lockdowns. There have been very tight restrictions where people have been told you've got to stay in the house and you've got to stay, to stay locked down where they are. Maybe let out once in a while to do a bit of shopping. That's about
right. It. Well, the thing is, I'm here. Sorry, go on.
Yeah. Yeah, because here in Queensland, it's a very different story. We've had virtually no cases of the COVID that have been reported by mainstream media. Very, very few. So up here where we are, we don't really see any signs of it. People walk around without masks. They're not socially distancing. At least the majority of people aren't. Some people.
Wow. So do you think Australians see the deception what's going on within the government, or do you think a lot of them are still following and obeying?
It's like everywhere else. A lot of people are sucked in. A lot of people think that what they're being told is the truth, and there's a fair amount of people that are thinking, no, this is nonsense. So you get a bit of both. Whether it's more than other places, I'm not 100% sure. I would imagine that the Australian, they probably are. They've always been kind of an open-minded people, and maybe they are a bit more savvy to what's going on than other places. But there's still so many people that are fully believing what they're told.
So you being so-called, I don't like the term conspiracy theorist because that was created by the U.S. government to, to 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 make it look like we're the bad people. But you being so much into like learning about this and really trying to understand it, why do you think this whole thing started? Is it just to control the population of humanity?
I would imagine so. I mean, I'm no expert really on this. I've done a little bit of searching around on the web and reading things about it. But the bottom line I always have to tell everybody is I'm not an expert. I don't fully know what's going on. But I have my suspicions, and I do think that it's a part of a long-term plan really to gain more control over the common people. So
Right.
I think that it was a plan which is not just happened just now or just started just now. It's been long-term in the making.
Yeah.
I am a conspiracy, as you say, and I do think that there is reason for it all, because under no circumstances could this be called a pandemic. It's not nothing like the Black Death or anything.
So what is the definition of pandemic to you?
Well, I think that if it was a genuine pandemic, you'd be going out on the streets and you'd be seeing people dead lying there because there's not enough resources maybe to clear up all the dead bodies.
Right.
For me, it doesn't look like what I would consider a pandemic at all. It just looks like normal.
Yeah. Well, we are told so much in our society, history, through mainstream media. You know, for the longest time it was radio, or it was telegrams or whatever, and then it was like TV, and then social media now and everything like that. And we're told basically, or we're taught basically history and the news from outside authority. And I tell people, we really don't know what their intentions are, if they're good or bad, or some may be good, some may be bad. And I always tell people, everything that we're told, question it. Whatever society's telling us, question that, because we really don't know. And also, let's instead of looking to outside authority for our health, fixing our health, fixing society, trying to make things better, let's rely on our intuition. Let's rely on ourselves to get to that world we really want to live in. So you want to expand on that?
No, I think it's very true that even from the moment we're taught by our elders, taught by society to accept things the way they are.
Yeah.
And most of us don't ever really question the status quo. We just think governments are there because they've always been there. As far as history is concerned, there's always been government. We never step back and say, hey, just a second, who are these people that have this power to tell us what we can and can't do, and
right.
to punish us if we don't do as they say. And
yeah.
I think it's very important for all of us to take that a step back and think, well, hang on a second, what's going on? Because if you or I were to come up to people and say, oh, stop there a second, let me search your bags, because I want to check if you've got something in there that you shouldn't do, they would say, well, who the hell are you to come and tell me that I've got to open my...
Because we're nobody but police. They have authority, so-called, to do that.
Yeah. It's like just because they're getting paid to do it, or because somebody has told them that you've got to do this, and he will pay you to do this. It doesn't mean that there's any inherent right to do what they're doing. They don't. They're bullies. Basically, the whole system is a system of bullying.
Right. So I've learned a lot. Sorry?
They've always got some reason for why they do what they do. Yet for the common folk out there who haven't really given it any thought, they just accept that reasoning as being. But there is no real reason why anybody should do that.
Right, of course.
Again, once I use the same reasoning myself, if I said, you stop, let me look in your bag, and you say to me, well, why? And I give you a reason why, you're still going to say, get out of here. There's no reason that I can give you that will allow me to look in your bag.
Right. Right, exactly.
There's no
And from all the information that I've seen right now with this so-called one world government, a lot of people really don't give you any solutions. What do we do to get out of this mess that we're in? I mean, I believe that veganism ultimately will get us on the path. So as more and more people go vegan, of course, veganism, again, like you mentioned, and I know as well from reading your books and just learning about this, is that veganism is not the end goal, but it's a start. It's the main first step on our journey. So when we go vegan and more people go vegan, and probably at least 25, maybe 20-25%, maybe 30% of the world population goes vegan, then we'll start to see a shift, or do you think that we'll start to see a shift in global consciousness, ethical, spiritual, environmental?
I would love to believe that that's true, but I think in recent times the vegan movement, although it's growing, I should really say the plant-based movement is growing, but I think there's like an ulterior kind of movement that's running parallel to it, and that isn't this kind of nice movement where we think people are becoming more compassionate. Right. For example, they're trying now to get synthetic meats out there as something for people to take instead of eating the flesh of an animal.
Oh, you mean you mean the ones grown in laboratory?
Yes. I mean, there is talk of phasing out animal farming and replacing it with lab-grown flesh.
Lab-grown meat, yeah.
But the one thing which is actually quite sinister about that, really, because people are still wanting to have that flesh, but they just want it not from an animal. But the one thing really very sinister about that is the fact that at the moment we have a situation where there are still quite a lot of small farmers around that are farming animals, which I don't agree with at all, and don't think there's any credit for what they're doing. But at the same time, these are people that are running their businesses, maybe a family-run business, and when it's all shut down and if this synthetic meat becomes a common option for people to choose from, it's going to be owned by just a few companies. And no longer will it be hundreds of tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of different families that are doing this. It will be owned by the elite. So the elite will own, handful of dozen or so companies around the world. They will be selling their wares to the public. Yeah. And that is very dark, because it's kind of, you might think it's going in the right direction, but actually they're gaining more and more control.
Yeah, and
it's very important. As vegans, it's very important that we don't give them power. And you were talking about awareness, and we have to look away from those products that they're going to sell, those ways that they're going to sell the lab-grown meat, and start making our own food from fresh plant-based ingredients, and not buying things that are in a package or things that are lab-grown.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much I can say. There's also so much I can say about this, because I've learned a lot. There's this one video that really goes into it in detail. I forgot who it was or which video it was, but if I find it, I can definitely post it down below in the description of this YouTube video, because this will be eventually uploaded to YouTube. But it was with Harold Brown from New York, who used to be an ex-cattleman slaughter worker. He worked for decades in animal agriculture. And there was a few others that were also in there as well. I can't remember who it was, but there was a few others there. And there was some other ones, I guess, for it as well. So it's kind of like a debate. So I will, if I remember, I will post that down below, or ask me, and I'll post it. But basically, when we are, as vegans, when we are, and I agree completely with Gary Francione, even though he's a little bit harsh sometimes, I agree with him on criticizing people for participating in these things, participating in these big animal protection organizations like PETA and HSUS and all these other organizations, even though I agree, they do some good work, we need to realize that in the whole we need to realize the whole picture basically of what's really happening, and that basically, sorry, 1 second, I just closed the window. So basically that we're not addressing the root cause. We're not telling the people out there what is the real problem here, and that is that we own non-human animals, and we should stop owning them and seeing them as property. Nothing will ever get better until we address this and tell people it's not about meatless Mondays. This is a joke. It's not about. Okay, we can definitely see people reducing their consumption of animal products and going plant-based and eating these plant-based burgers and whatever. But when we promote veganism or raw veganism, we need to address the underlying cause and not be flaky. And we really need to speak openly, honestly, and genuinely to people. So, what is your response to that?
Absolutely. I mean, we have to bring veganism back to what it really is. It's about understanding that animals are not ours to eat, wear, experiment on, or whatever else it is we do with them, entertainment purposes. And because at the moment the vegan movement, which is growing, it's a plant-based movement. It's about getting people to eat more plant and eat less animal products. Yes. And a lot of people identify as vegan, and in our opinion, probably we share the same opinion. They're not really understand. They don't really have an understanding of what veganism is. So I think it's very important that we get back to what it is. Which would then include not having animals as pets, as you mentioned at the beginning there, because that is using them as entertainment, using them for our selfish purposes.
And by the way, they can get your book to learn more about that, or get mine. It's Return to the Gentle Sea, and they can learn about pet issues there.
Yeah, very good. Now, people should think about it, because it's one of those issues, one of many, many issues in the world that people in general do not think about, because it's always been that way. And pets have always been there. People have had pets. So it's something you don't question. Just like government. They've always been government. And the idea of not having one, they equate with anarchy. And the idea of not having pets, they equate with a world without dogs and cats or something. They'll jump to some radical kind of extreme. It doesn't mean that at all. It just means that you're no longer taking on that role of being master and having animals as a slave.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's so much that we can both say about this issues. I mean, how do we get? Basically, people are wondering, how do we get to the Eden world? As Dr. Sailesh Rao says, we're going to get to a vegan world by 2026. Do you believe this will actually happen? What do we need to get there by this time?
I think I would love that to be true, but realistically, there are so many dark forces in this world at the moment that I just find it unrealistic. 2026 is only like 6 years away.
Yeah, and
how are you defining vegan? You might get people just eating plant, but will it be a vegan world, and will people use as slaves?
Well, that's the thing. I wonder sometimes when people say plant-based or vegan, they interchangeably use those, and sometimes even people interchangeably use vegetarianism and vegan like they're all the same thing.
Sadly so. There's a huge difference.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think that's a good start. I think that's a good start, but people are, I think, maybe scared to use the word, or maybe they're scared to address what's really happening.
I think so too. I think a lot of people are taking the approach that if you use the word vegan, people get frightened and they'll move away. But if you talk about telling them to reduce rather than eliminate, they have a better chance of reaching people. And maybe there's some truth to that. But I think it's very important that there's also people that say, no, it's not enough. You know, you have to keep encouraging people forward.
Yeah.
So even though I acknowledge that you can take baby steps, and it's good that there's people encouraging them to take steps.
Yeah.
It's also there's people that are telling them, look, there's a lot more you can do, and don't stop there. You may have reached a plateau, but there's more you can do. There's always more. You know, I can do more, you can do more. Yeah.
That's why one of your books, what is it, 2020 Vision or Vision 2020, something like that?
20 Vision.
Yeah, that one goes more into detail of what people can do rather than just being vegan. What else can you do?
Yeah, the subtitle of that book is Veganism Plus Plus, which is showing that it's taking veganism and it's like expanding on it.
Expanding on it. So that is your, just like mine, that is your inspiration, I guess, your motivation to write and to get your books out to as many people as possible, basically.
Yeah. Well, I'm lucky if I manage to get one book out there a month or something. But I'm sell a book, not because I'm making money from it, just because I'm happy somebody's reading what I'm writing. And yeah, it is my calling in life, you could say. I think that I've been gifted with certain inspirations and ideas which I feel like I have a duty to share with the world. So yes. Writing is much, regardless of how many people get to read me. I feel that maybe one day, the day might come where more people will begin to cotton on to what I'm saying and realize that there's truth to it and want to read my books. But at the moment, I think I'm a bit too radical for most people.
Well, in any case, I am very inspired and motivated and really take your books to heart, all of them, even though some of them I do believe are very long. And maybe it could have been condensed a little bit, but overall, your books are incredible. They've really taught me so much about the ethical and spiritual dimensions of why it's so important to eat eating fruitarian. But just being vegan, like that is what you're trying to push, because we're trying to get the world, people in the world, to be vegan at least, and then to continue to make their journey along that way, hopefully to fruitarian or eating fruitarian world.
Well, I always start off with all of my books. I have veganism as a very solid foundation, and
right.
Although I expand on, I always try to make it clear to people that may be new to veganism reading my book that even though I'm expanding on it and I may be going a little bit too far for you, please, everybody, don't kind of use that as an excuse to not build that foundation. Because I think many people will do that. They'll search for whatever excuses they can find to not make that step. And because I go further than plain veganism, they'll say, this guy's gone too far. I can't follow him too much. At all. So after every time I lay that foundation stone of veganism in my book, I always try to make it clear. Don't think that just because I'm stepping past that and moving forward from that you can, that's a reason for you not to understand veganism, because there is nothing really that's difficult to understand if you open your heart.
Yeah, so, wow. So you probably not only have gotten a lot of great feedback, but maybe even some harsh criticism. So you want to share some with us of what some people have said?
No, it's really funny because mostly, pretty much 99% of what I get is positive feedback from people that read my book. I, like, you know, if you look on Amazon and people give me reviews, there's only been one person who's given me 1 star, and most people have given me 5, and the majority give me 5, and some have given me 4. But the 1 star was somebody who said, it's a vision too far, and I'm wanting to have a world without dogs and cats because I talk out against pets. And, and I'm thinking, well, I've never really read what I said because I haven't said anything to make one jump to that conclusion. But they did, nevertheless.
That's another thing I find, that a lot of people tend to read bits and pieces, but they don't read from front to back of the book. So they'll take one chapter, they'll read it, and then they'll come to a conclusion because of that. But that one, maybe they won't fully understand unless they read the chapter before or the chapter after. So I tell people always, like, read books, especially nonfiction. Read them from front to back, all of it, because the one little word they miss could be like missing the whole book, you know.
So true. I think that is. I do know there are a lot of people that take my book and they'll just open it at random and start reading. And although I kind of love that people have told me they do that, and it kind of it touches my heart. They've got it next to their toilet seat and they pick it up and read it at random. I do wish that people would take it from cover to cover and read it, because I do know, as you say, that there are certain aspects that you have to read all of it in order to understand.
Yeah, it's usually people, they do that. They read it all and then they go to the washroom and they use it as a kind of a toilet book. So I found that.
I just saying that, I've got a lot of quotes in my book, and a lot of people, that's something that they'll pick up and read. They'll just read a quote at random. They'll read one. Now, try to sprinkle humor in my writing as well.
Right, and that's one thing I really enjoy is your humor. Like, you have a lot of humor, and it seems like you have a lot of humorous imagery that you drew, and you have a lot of your own quotes as well, and some poems as well. And also, I find that with your writing, it's kind of like unconventional, because you write certain words or phrases or grammatical things differently, like totally outside the box. So sometimes it seems like maybe it's not grammatically written correctly or whatever, but you do it because of your writing style, the way that you want to present it,
That's true,
So that's really,
I do make some typos. I do spell things that sometimes wrong when the first edition gets out there, but I iron them out as it goes along, because I'm impatient sometimes to get the book out. But then afterwards I'll read it and correct it. And,
what people, I understand. But what people don't realize is that life in general is like always improving and re-editing our lives, or same thing like a book. It's never finished, basically.
Right.
I said that, like a lot of my books I have to still edit, and, there are a lot of old things that I want to remove and update and all this kind of thing. But, so.
One of the great things. Print on demand. We're both using print on demand. You were using the Amazon app, I think, and I'm using Lulu. And that enables at any time, if we spot something wrong, we just kind of make changes and then re-upload the book. I don't know, my first book, Destination Eden, it was you that pointed out to me that I'd used it in many cases to refer to animals. And after we discussed that, I went back and changed it. Maybe the edition that came out by Vegan Publishers has still got it in it. But I think I've ironed them all out now from my book, and I've done my best to not use it when referring to animals. I call them he or she or it. Sorry, he or she.
No, I understand. I understand. And with my organization skills and trying to back up everything on my computers, and with moving all around so many times, you lose things, you lose files, whatever. And then it's like, well, where did this file go? I had the old version or whatever. But I remember, and I want to tell some people this, that one time I had a video up of a baby being taken away. I think it was from France, and the baby was a baby cow, a calf, was being taken away from his or her mother. And I said instead, I put its mother. So then somebody corrected me on the title of it, and since that time, I really made sure that this is really clear, that it's not, they're not things to be used. Is the main thing that I even tell vegans, because some vegans don't really even understand that. I mean, I know a lot of good people within the movement, vegan, plant-based, whatever, raw vegan, that still are using phrases or words or things that really are non-ethical, that they're not just thinking. It's like a program that we've had for a very long time. Like when you say, for example, I was just having this discussion, and if you say, for example, like my girlfriend or my spouse, you kind of sound like you own them, you know, or my cat, or, you know, my dog. So language is very, very crucial. I think maybe there should be some kind of vegan language. But, you know, somebody invents that.
Yeah, I was actually on the same note. I was just thinking the other day how we use animals to describe certain situations that humans are in, or certain attributes of humans. Like we might call somebody a pig or a cow, or tell them that they're weaseling out or something, or they're badgering somebody. You know, there's so many different ways in which we use an animal species to describe something which is, you know, often not a nice attribute to a human being.
Yeah, I think a lot of times we do that because we see them as lesser beings than us. So then we attribute all these things to them. Yeah. So how do we get majority of the world to see things differently, like everything on this world? I mean, it's so hard. But I don't know. I kind of feel like we just want to live in Eden, and we want to eat the fruits, and we want to be in connection with amazing people. But instead, we're here in like kind of like an opposition. Even though really it's not an opposition, but we're here like evil against good, you know. And sometimes it gets depressing. Sorry.
It's a difficult task. It really is. I mean, it's not something that any one of us can undertake. And honestly, I wish there was some magical way we could pick our fingers or knock our heels together and suddenly we'd be in the land of Eden. But basically, the world is being ruled by dark forces, and we just have to understand this. We may not ourselves understand fully everything that's dark. You know, we may be participating in something. So the more that we can realize and question everything, going back to what you were saying at the beginning, question everything that we've ever been told, everything that we believe to be true, everything that's been tradition for countless generations. We have to question it all and ask, hang on a second, is this bringing more harmony to the world, or does it harm in some way? Maybe not people around us, but is it harming somebody somewhere or some speech somewhere? Because the more we can do that, the more we can actually think, hey, hang on a second, let's change this, let's do something different. Let's not contribute.
Yeah, because...
And one of the...
Yeah, sorry.
No, I just, you know, being an anarchist as well as a vegan, and very much an abolitionist when it comes to animal rights and thinks that wanting animals to be. I'm very much also an anarchist and believe that humans also should not be used. So we have to be stepping away from both, because we allow ourselves to be used in so many ways. We allow ourselves to be owned, and when we bring new people into the world, new babies, children, we one of the things we do voluntarily and without even really thinking is allowing them to be part of the system. From the moment they're born, we'll register them, and we don't understand that with that simple act of registering a child and giving that child a number, we are making that him or her an involuntary member of a system that they've never acquiesced to. They've never like said, yeah, this is something that I want to be a part of.
It's basically, Mango, like I see it, is basically the same thing we do to non-human animals, giving them the number tag, the ear tags or whatever.
Yeah, it's very similar. I always like to notice that we don't actually put a staple in anybody's ear. We're not branding people. We're not. Right. The intention isn't to take harm and kill them. So animals, there's a lot of similarities to the way humans are herded, and humans are kept as slaves. Restricted in so many ways. But the level that it is with animals is so much more dark and sinister.
Right, exactly. Because the whole thing is to use them and then eventually to kill them for food and for other products. So, but now it's during this so-called pandemic time, which even that word I don't really like, but during this 2020 time, I see things coming from two different directions. So, for example, 2020 people think as well, this is the time because, as you probably know, the 21st of December was a time when the planets were aligning and the age of Aquarius, even though I question that also because I don't know about the NASA so-called solar system kind of history or belief, and I don't even know if we actually even left the Earth at all because there's so many things that point to the fact that we may not have ever left. And even Bud, I forgot his name, Bud something, the one that went to the moon with Neil Armstrong, the other guy, Bud, whatever his name was, he even said in one interview, and people mentioned that it's, well, anyways, the whole story is that we have to question everything. We don't really know what's happening. But in 2020, basically, there was two theories. There was the theory that more and more people are starting to awaken, to start to really see what's happening. And at the same time, though, the agenda of these elite people, whoever they are, shadow government, we can call them, or cabal, and not Illuminati, because Illuminati means illumination, basically. So we don't really know what's happening. I mean, it's going off two different tangents, but do you believe that even if people don't go vegan, but they're meditating for peace, and they're doing it, and they're feeling and they're believing it, that is happening, do you think that we can still get to that world that we really want to be in? Or do the people need to actually go vegan? Sorry?
No, it's a crucial step. You can't get there just by thinking about peace and not being peaceful. You know, it doesn't work. It's like saying, okay, I'm thinking peace, 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 but at the same time I've got a dagger in my hand and I'm stabbing somebody.
Yeah.
It's hypocritical. So I think that any sort of peace is going to help in some fashion, but while their actions are not in line with what they're thinking, then they're hindering themselves and hindering the world. Yeah, it's incredibly important that we take that step and stop victimizing animals before we can rightfully expect for the world to stop restricting and oppressing ourselves, because that's what's happening. You know, a lot of people out there are thinking, oh, this is not on, the governments are oppressing us, and at the same time they're oppressing other beings and thinking that they have every right to do that. You know, they're expressing what I call human supremacy, which is where they think that they're supreme and that they are above and better than others. And that's exactly what the elites are doing. They're like elite supremacy. The rest are just cannon fodder.
So do you think when more and more people go truly vegan, like ethically vegan, the way Donald Watson coined it in 1944, do you think then, at least when 25% of the world population goes truly vegan, then we'll start to see that change in society, in governmental structures?
I think that would be the case. I think that at a certain point. I'm not sure exactly when critical mass is, but 25% seems an awful lot to me. If a quarter of the world was suddenly woke up and thought, hang on a second, what am I contributing to? And genuinely stopped because they understood what they were doing was wrong. And they also stopped thinking to have something which substitutes for animal flesh and animal secretions, and stop buying products which are manufactured by people that are basically have evil ends, evil ideas in their minds. If they stop doing that too, which for me is part of veganism as well, to stop contributing, stop paying other people that we know aren't, if I may, jump onto the fact that some places, the fast food chains, are now selling vegan products alongside products which are not vegan. And people are thinking, okay, it's okay to go and buy from them. But those mega chains, those global fast food chains that they're buying from, are part of what's destroying the planet. And whether you're buying vegan from them or buying animal products, you're fueling them to continue doing whatever it is they're doing.
That's what a friend of mine told me, and then I'm like, well, you're still kind of supporting them in a way, because they're going to buy also animal products as well, no matter what. I mean, it's basically just demand. Of course, if you have enough demand, they're definitely going to change most or all of their menu if there's enough demand for it. But I had a lot of people argue, like, well, you go to the supermarket sometimes and you buy, products that the supermarket's selling, animal products, for example. So you're in a way supporting that too. And I mean, the only thing we could do is our best. I mean, if we only have one supermarket where we live, then the idea is to figure a way how we can grow more food so we don't have to support that system.
I think it's hugely important. This is much of my focus in my very last book, Topsy-Turvy World, that we actually abandon the cities and focus once more on becoming self-sufficient and moving back to nature.
Yes,
abandoning
exactly.
the cities is important to our progress, because they are very vile, very evil places, full of vices, full of addiction, full of messages that are being kind of broadcast everywhere. And nowadays you've got 5G and other signals in there that are not good for anyone. And then certainly not good for the planet. Cities are part of what's destroying the planet.
Right, and that's a sad part, that more and more people are moving into the cities, and cities and towns are becoming larger and larger, like you wouldn't imagine. But I tell people all the time, like, live in a city, and most people, let's say, in the cities are not self-sustainable. So they're relying on energy, water, and food from governments, because basically that's what, from the city services. And what happens if, governments stop all that one day? They stop the trucks, they stop everything, and then what happens? Then we have no food, no water. There has been, in history, there has been cases of famine, no food, no water at times, and even at certain times no electricity for days or weeks or months even. And so I tell people, please, understand that these things are being provided to you, but you don't own them. You don't have these utilities. Somebody's giving them to you. What happens if they stop it? What happens if something happens and no longer, you have to pay whatever? So you have to think about that. And it's very difficult though nowadays, because everything is being. This is the part that I really am kind of struggling with. Maybe we can discuss about land. Land is supposed to be free for everyone. We have a birthright to walk and to move anywhere we want on Earth. And if you look at the animals, for example, non-human animals, they go and come as they please, of course, within their territories and things like that. They go and come as they please. They fly wherever they please. I don't believe there's anything fake country borders and police guards, you know, asking them for their ID or their passport or anything like that. How do we really get around this system? How do we get away from that? Like, Mango, we have this free land, we have this free body, this sovereign individual human body, and we're taught at the same time to pay for land, to buy land, to pay for rent, to pay for get mortgages, all this thing, and then we're seeing inequality around the world. I mean, sometimes I get so depressed over this, but I'm more of a positive person that really has hope that humanity, or at least majority of humanity, will awaken soon.
This is the question we keep coming back to. It's really about how to change the world and how to get people to wake up. And if people accept that government is a legitimate body, then it's going to be very difficult for us to move on. So even if you're a vegan, a lot of vegans out there, they still think that governments are legitimate, that they're there for a good purpose. So it's the government which is stopping you going out on the land and living where you want to live, like every other animal does. It's the government which stops you building your own shack or whatever you want to do because you need planning permission to do it. It's the government which is basically stopping you living the way that which has stolen your birthright.
Yes, exactly. I tell people that we are sovereign individual human beings. We have the right to move freely anywhere we want. We have the right to food in nature, the seed, the plant foods, and the water, clean water. But one thing I really have trouble understanding, and I'm thinking, because I talk to a lot of people about this, and I'm thinking that maybe, and I'm going to ask you the question after, but maybe right now we have a lot of vegans, and I know many, many good-hearted people, many, many good ethical vegans, animal rights, ethical people, meeting them in person, wonderful people. Now they are ready to get the vaccine. They're ready right away to get the vaccine or microchipping or whatever. I don't understand what's going on in their minds. We need to keep people safe. We need to have vaccines, all this kind of thing. Do you think, Mango, it could be a little bit because of the cooked food? It makes their minds foggy, or maybe like a little bit more unable to understand, more unconscious.
I would not doubt that it plays a role, because on the reverse side of the coin, I know from my own personal experience and speaking with others that have gone through the process that once you eliminate cooked food, your mind does become clearer. You are able to see things more clearly. You're able to see the way forward more clearly. So absolutely, the fact that they're eating cooked food is clouding their judgment. It does make them unaware of what really is going on in the world.
Right.
It's not like I anybody I know what's really going on in the world, because I'm not somebody, I'm just a bod, you know, like yourself. I'm not somebody that really knows. I'm not privy to a lot of information.
Right.
I just have an inherent distrust in authority because I understand what authority really is. I understand that it's something which has been taken by force and is been maintained by the threat of violence.
Right.
And that's what it is. And I don't want, you know, the threat of violence is not something that I want to support. And forcing people, obliging them to do something against their wishes is not something which I wish to support. So when they're talking about, you know, well, actually, the pharmaceutical companies are very much on the same level. They're all part and parcel of the same body, really. And they are an organization, the pharmaceutical industries, which are very much unethical. They are killing untold number of animals in their pursuit of creating this vaccine. And for vegans to say, oh, we need the vaccine, and have knowledge that animals are being tortured in so many horrendous ways for that vaccine to be produced, is ridiculous for me. I don't, you know, these people should not be claiming to be vegans. if they're demanding and waiting for something and saying it's their salvation, a product which is begotten through the torment and tormenting of animals.
Right.
It frustrates me that
yeah, it frustrates me because people, vegans, like now, especially in 2020, I see a lot. I mean, I'm on social media way less, but in the beginning of this whole ordeal in 2020, I believe it was like February or March that it started, there was a lot of infighting between vegans about and the whole issue at the time was all about masks, and now it's still about masks, but more about the vaccine. And so we need to, I don't know, there's a division somewhere. I think a lot of it has to do with the power forces behind governments, mega corporations, media, all that. A lot of it has to do with that and the propaganda that they put out. But yeah, maybe it's also to do with the higher consciousness, because I know for myself, and to tell people out there the truth about me, because unlike other YouTubers or other people out there who just talk and then finally later on there's a mysterious something that we know about them that they lied about or whatever, you know, all this drama happening within the movement. So yeah, for myself personally, the more over the years, when I became vegan, I started to be more aware and cautious about everything that I was doing, supporting, what I was buying, what I was supporting. Eventually, after a few years, I got rid of all my animal clothing. I said, what am I doing? Why am I even wearing this stuff? It's not vegan. Why am I doing this? Even if I didn't buy in something else that was non-vegan, why am I still wearing my leather boots? Or why am I still wearing, you know, my leather jacket or my silk tie or whatever? And then eventually, once I started incorporating more and more fruit in my diet, fruits and vegetables, like raw veganism, I started to realize that more than the average vegan. So I started to realize deception about the government, within society. I started to recognize all the implications to all the, or most of the institutions of our society. I started to realize that the only, and this was actually during, most of it was during the 2020 time, during this year, that I started to be aware of because of what was really happening. I see through things. So I think it's very true that once we stop clouding our minds and our vision and our, start continuing to progress ethically, spiritually, raising our consciousness, all this kind of thing, we start to really see what's happening. We start to, our eyes are more open. We start to really see the bigger picture. And I found, sorry?
Yes, that's so true. That's so true.
Yeah, and I found out that more and more that I stick to raw foods, the more and more I eat things that are more naturally. I mean, of course, we all have our falls. We fall down, whatever. I've done things as a vegan that I'm not proud of. But we learn and we understand why are we really doing this. When we have a motivation for something, and that's why when we have that motivation of being vegan, because I know a lot of people say, oh, I don't like that term. I call myself vegetarian or plant-based or whatever, But I tell them, if you think about what veganism really means, and that is, it's kindness and compassion towards non-human animals, and to do the most good and to do the least harm as much as possible. And once we understand this, then we understand how everything is connected, how everything causes almost everything that involves animals or in some way as exploitation of them is really still supporting the whole paradigm of evilness and violence. And once we understand that and we have the motivation to stay vegan, wow, I mean, my life has changed like a lot. Before I became vegan, Mango, and you can probably talk to us about that too, but before I became vegan, I don't even think I was living. I think I I suddenly just started waking up to really what was going on, and no longer was I like asleep or partially asleep. And I really felt so wonderful, and I continue to do so because I see, the more I see, yes, in some way it makes you kind of depressed, but also the more you see, especially if you really feel positive, and positive for the future, positive for humanity, especially unconditional love for everyone. And we know that the good people will survive. I don't know what's going to happen with the other people, but what do you have to say before you became vegan? What do you have to say to your old self, if you will?
I went through very much the same kind of thing. For me, I woke up in 1987, and it was a huge revelation for me. And it really helped me to begin seeing so many other things more clearly. So I went from waking up, living in the corporate world and going to work a 9-to-5 job, and kind of really, I had a mortgage, I had a job, and I was so focused on that being my life before I became vegan that I thought that I was going to continuing along on that same career that I had and would get a bigger and bigger house or a better and better car or whatever. Actually, I didn't have a car, but eventually I thought I'd get one, and I just thought that was my future. I saw myself as being someone that would just find myself a partner or settle down and just continue that kind of thing until I retired. But after I became vegan, so many things became clear to me, and I ended up.
Sorry, can you say it again? When you became vegan, because it was I didn't hear you.
After I became vegan, I fully left behind all of that. It took me a while. Okay. The more I thought about it, the more I kind of realized that that's not the life that I wanted to lead, and that I had something better waiting for me. So I let go of it all. I let go of pretty much everything that I had, everything that I owned. I got rid of, and I ended up getting on a bicycle and just kind of taking off without any really clue of where I was going.
So can you please explain that journey of staying in the 9-to-5 and then going to another way of living? Can you explain that? Because for some people, they will not explain, like, oh, how are you going to make money to survive? How are you going to do this? What kind of work did you have? Can you explain all that?
You know, it was very much a leap of faith. I think I'd read a lot when I became vegan of my own accord. Initially vegetarian, but 6 months later, I'd read enough to understand that I needed to be vegan. But I'd read, I got kind of interested in many things esoterical. I became interested in Ekankar around the same time as well.
Sorry, what? What was that? What was that?
Ekankar.
Ekankar.
You may not have heard of it. Eckankar.
Okay.
For those who haven't heard of it, they claim to be the oldest.
What is that? Sorry, what is that?
For those who have not heard of it, they claim to be the oldest known religion philosophy in the world.
Okay.
But anyway, that's another. I don't want to go into details on that, but I became very interested in esoterical things which I had not before.
Right.
And I think one of the people who I somehow stumbled upon, and she became a huge influence in my life, was Peace Pilgrim. Have you ever heard of her?
Peace Pilgrim? I can't recall, no.
She was a lady who, at a certain point, I think in her late 40s, she just decided that she was going to leave behind everything that she had and just walk and not use any money and not own anything. So she left home with nothing but the clothes she was wearing and a pen and paper and toothbrush. And she basically just went out there with faith that everything would be provided for her. And she lived until the day she was killed by a car crash.
So Peace Pilgrim. Sorry, her title was Peace Pilgrim.
Pilgrim, yes. You can find out about her. She's on YouTube. She's got some videos.
So she's still alive, yeah?
No, she was killed in a car accident when she was walking.
And how long ago was that?
I think in the 1980s she was killed.
Okay. It'll be interesting to learn more about her, yeah. So
her life, her philosophy of spreading peace everywhere and just walking with faith that she would always be provided for, it very much influenced me. And also, I don't think I could say that I had the same faith to be able to do exactly the same thing. I left everything behind, and it was a huge leap of faith for me. And it was just something that I took. I decided, well, why not? I mean, there were other things going on in my life at the time which maybe pushed me in that direction. But in the end of the day, it was like, why not? Why can't I do this? So I just left it all. And I had really very little money at the end, because I lost most of the money that I'd saved through working on a very badly timed investment of property. I basically lost all the money through investing in a property which was a terrible financial decision. So, I was just leaving and living on my bicycle. And
so you basically just left all your material things?
Yeah.
Wow.
I did. It take me a period of weeks I did try and liquidize as much of it as I could, and a lot of it just ended up in a skip. I had a lot of books. I was reading a lot of science fiction at the time. Even some of the science fiction that I was reading was opening my mind too. I was reading like Robert Heinlein, and he had an influence on me, some of his philosophy. And Richard Bach. Have you ever read any of Richard Bach's stuff?
Tell you the truth, when I was younger, I never liked to read at all. I was never much into school at all, even though I did graduate grade 12, and I have some college education, but that really means nothing. But I never really liked to read at all. And now I love to read, but there's always things going on that keeps me not from reading. If it's something like maybe an article or whatever, But if I do read, for some reason, I'm always gravitating towards books like yours, Will Tuttle's, and other vegan so-called spiritual philosophy kind of books, But so what?
Yeah,
so what
actually,
really, yeah.
No, I'm just thinking that I've just told you this story that I left it all behind and started biking. And that isn't true. I'm jumping ahead a little bit. There was a step in between that. I did actually leave everything behind, and I went to live on an island on a farm before I took up on my bicycle. But that's a completely different story. I've written the first 30 years of my life in my autobiography. So that kind of outlines actually the first 31 years of my life.
Yeah.
And the second 31 will be in the second part 2 of my biography.
Yeah, I actually read that book. And it's a big mouthful to swallow because it's so much to absorb and to remember exactly what happened, where it happened, and all this kind of thing is like incredible. So thank you for sharing that book, because that's half your life basically, right?
Yeah, half my life is coming up. And the second half, which I haven't started on yet, but once I have gotten my laptop back from being fixed, because I'm taking it into to see 6, I intend to start on the second half. So that'll be my next book, probably the second half of my biography.
Yes, and I just want to make an announcement here. If anybody wants to really help and they don't know what to do, I mean, the first thing is definitely to go vegan, and understand really what veganism means. Learn all about it, all this kind of thing. try to be positive and loving and caring and just go with your intuition. But the thing is, and I lost my train of thought now, but to support also people, wonderful people, authors, activists, vegans who are really trying to make this world a better place. Support people like Mango, support people like myself. We have websites, fruitnut.net. I will put it in the description below. But it's fruitnut.net is where you can find Mango, get his books, help support him. You can also find my work. I'm an author as well, as I mentioned. I'm a spiritual coach and YouTuber, as well as a World Peace Diet facilitator. So you can find my work at wreinterconnected.com. That's all down below. I forgot to mention this in the beginning of the show. But hopefully at the end we will also say your website again so people will know. But fruitnut.net, yeah.
One thing I'd like to add to people is, I mean, because I know it's not always nice to get a bit of support. Mostly I like support in the way of, I appreciate support in the way of people telling me, okay, I've read your book and I really appreciate what you've written, and it's given me some food to think.
Exactly.
And I will say, if anybody out there wishes to read my book, I'm very, very willing to give away the PDF to anybody that wants to read them. So just let me know, and I'm always happy to share them.
Exactly, that's what I always.
Making money is not my priority. I'm not writing to make money. I'm writing to spread a message. So,
of course.
You know,
and that's the terrible thing, unfortunately, is in our society we of course still need money if we're not fully self-sufficient. So that's where this help needs to come in place, and also vegans helping one another, whatever it is. If it's not money, it's reading something and writing a review or talking to people about the books or veganism or whatever, you know, just sharing the message as far and as wide as you possibly can. So yeah, so it's so good that you came on here, Mango. I mean, I've talked to you so many times within the last many years, and I've been so inspired and motivated by your books. And I know you're writing more books, and as myself, I'm writing so many books at the same time, basically. But also focusing on the community, because I think community is very important to get people going vegan and also staying vegan and raw vegan. So however that happens, however the universe wants it to happen, things happen, and at the right timing, and things just become so beautiful. And Mango, I know you're there with your lovely partner, Kieta, and I want to wish you guys the best and the much love for 2021 and beyond. I know you probably don't celebrate, these holidays, Christmas or Hanukkah or whatever. So, yeah, so what can we do now that people know? I mean, they can go vegan, but what else can we do? I mean, is there solutions to all this madness?
This is the eternal question. Going vegan, step 1. Moving out of the city, step 2. Growing your own food as much as you can, step 3. Loosening your ties with the state so that you're becoming more and more independent and expressing outwardly more and more your sovereignty. So you're not reliant on the state for your existence.
Right.
I think
so what can people do if they're challenged? Because now we're having this 2020 pandemic thing. What can we do to challenge people that go mad when we don't wear a mask? I mean, for example, do you wear your mask when you go somewhere to a supermarket or something? How do you handle all that? Mask, the temperature gun, all this kind of thing.
We don't have any of that here.
Oh, you don't?
Any really. There's nobody.
Wow.
Very, very. see somebody with a mask on. Very rarely. And there's
So,
no temperature guns.
wow.
Sanitizer, hand sanitizer. People say, oh, use the hand sanitizer. And I'll
Right,
just go
right.
up to it and put it like this.
Uh-huh.
Because I don't want any...
Well, I guess you're the lucky one, because in Canada, I heard pretty bad things from my family. My mom is kind of on board. She's starting to understand a lot about the government and the deception behind that. She's learning a lot about common law and trying to understand how we can protect ourselves from police tyranny. And myself too, because I live in a place, unfortunately, I don't fully speak the language fluently, but I'm starting to learn a little bit by little bit, and understand that here also they have mandatory things, but we're trying to do our best to teach others the best way we can, by not wearing our masks as much as possible. We go to places, we tell the owners or whoever's working there, I don't want to put a mask on because of this or this. And sometimes smaller locations will start to understand, because they will talk to you one-on-one, and they will try to understand why you're doing that and all that kind of thing. But if you're going on public transits, or you're going on planes, or things like that, or you're confronted by police or whatever, it's more difficult, you know. But I think the more love, the more caring, the more you just talk to them like a soul to a soul, you know, so being to a being, then they will start to understand. Like, for example, my partner Aurora, she told me a story that she had many months ago, early on in this lockdown. So she was at one point there was like nobody allowed on the beaches of Cartagena. So this is like a northern part of Colombia, the country Colombia. And basically she went with a few friends of hers to the beach when there was like almost nobody there, and police officers were patrolling the areas. And then one police officer, for example, was coming to the group, to her group, and asking her, you know, about not wearing masks. You got to wear a mask. You know, you have to be safe. All this kind of stuff. So she started talking, but not really about the mask, just about, you know, I'm just being here. I'm very peaceful. She had at the time she had like some kind of vegan food with her prepared, because she's a vegan and raw vegan chef. So she basically was talking to the police officer in a very, very lovely, calm, you know, loving kind of way. And she basically talking to him, and then started to talk to him about veganism and the mask situation and all this pandemic, and then gave this police officer food to try. I think it was a cake or something, I can't remember. But totally vegan. Try the food, you know. And he was like, wow, thank you so much. And he tried it, and he really loved it. And he said, okay, you guys can stay, you know, couple hours or whatever. And he started patrolling again, and they were still out for many hours, and he didn't say anything. He was like, hi, how are you? So I think love, really, in most cases, love can heal that. So try to make the best situation. And I know that you, Mango, you make the best situation out of times when people are mean or they criticize you. You tend to tell people, just make jokes out of the situation.
I think, you know, it's really so very important to realize that everybody that you're talking with is a soul brother or sister, just like yourself. And when you talk with them, they may be behaving like a bully, because let's face it, that's what authorities are. They have this bully mindset. The police officers, bless them all, I know they're my brothers and sisters, but yes, they are basically, they have this mental mindset where they are a bully, and they think that they have the power, the right to tell you what you should or shouldn't do when you're not doing anybody any harm. But I think it's very important to understand that they have been harmed, they have been hurt throughout their life, which has brought them to that mindset that they currently have. And just like in a schoolyard, if a bully is on you, you have to be clever with them in a way, and try and, if you can, it's not going to help you if you're weaker than trying to fight them, because they're just going to beat you because they're stronger than you are. So you have to try and reach them on a heart level, and try and talk to them in a way that you can reach them. Not everybody is, unfortunately, you cannot reach everybody like that. At least it's extremely difficult to do so. But if you can reach somebody in that way, experience something that you never thought you could experience.
Okay,
because,
so there, right. Go on. Sorry, say that last thing, please.
Those people that are behind, they're brainwashed, much like the rest of society, and they genuinely think that what they're doing is correct. They have that genuine feeling inside them that they are taking on a role which is very important and critical for the safety of people. And most people will just think, yes, that's true, they do. They have an important role that they're playing, and maybe I wouldn't want to do what they do.
Well, it's kind of like even doctors. Doctors feel sometimes that they're really trying to do their best to help people. But they're taught differently. They're taught the wrong information in school. I mean, how much nutrition training do they get? Like very little. It's that, nothing. And any field, any industry. I mean, human beings. Even I think even the worst so-called humans are not deep down are not evil people. I think we really can, because we're just programmed by the system and by our parents and all institutions in society just teaches us what they want to teach us. So they're actually, what I want to do is kind of a little bit different before we actually end this program, because I know I said I would end it about an hour and something. But I want to ask you a couple of questions that I think would be fun. In how do we actually, or how do you, I should say, when you are met by somebody, if it's in a supermarket or if it's a family member, I mean, every situation, of course, will be different. But how do you generally talk to a so-called someone like on the street or someone you just meet and you happen to talk to them about veganism? How do you go by typical conversations for people that are new to veganism? Like, what would you actually say?
I think it's very important to not come at them in a way that you're wrong, you're doing something wrong. So even though you may kind of recognize that what they're doing is wrong, it's very important to have a sense of humor with you when you're talking with people, and kind of greet them at their own level. And if they ask any questions, that's really, really great, and give them an answer which they can understand and relate to. So if somebody comes up to me and says, well, why don't you eat animals? You can just say, well, I really don't feel that I'm somebody that wants to hurt any animal. And that's, just keep it really simple.
Yeah.
And I can understand that, because people will say, well, I don't like hurting animals either. And then if they open to conversation, you can then say, well, if you don't like hurting animals, you do understand that every time you sit down to your meal, you are actually hurting animals indirectly. And a lot of them don't think about it. But even when you tell them, it's sadly the case that most people, there's still the majority out there, they're not open yet to receiving the message. So
especially down here in Central and South America, they really don't know much about even what veganism is. So imagine, the vegan word has been around since November 1944. And imagine throughout that time, a lot of people don't even know what vegan is. They think, oh, we're vegetarians. It's like, no, we're not vegetarians. I mean, in fact, if you really take the word vegetarian, it was mainly started being more widely used in about 1840s or 50s, I believe. And that was like 100 years before Donald Watson coined the term vegan in 1944. And what was found, or at least from my research, what was found that vegetarianism meant vegetable food. So anything that came from the vegetable kingdom, which included all the plant life, basically. If you're taking vegetable in the context of plants, if you're taking vegetables in the context of actually vegetable without the seed, then it becomes a whole different story. But anyway, that's what they meant. And even before that, there was the Pythagoreans that called themselves that didn't harm animals. I don't know if they were completely vegan, but from what Pythagoras wrote, and some of his disciples wrote, it seemed like he was vegan. And from what I've read, actually, some articles and things that I've read, that actually made him out to be someone who really didn't want to harm. He became fruitarian, claimed to be fruitarian, and then eventually breatharian. So he was all in all with his philosophy and ideas and things in that time. So I want to thank you, Mango. Do you have anything else you want to add?
No, but if you could provide some information, was that Pythagoras you were saying became fruitarian?
Pythagoras, what I did was I read, what's it called? It's some kind of essay that a friend did in university a long time ago, and I don't recall where the actual PDF went to, but the PDF mentions that he was becoming vegan and then fruitarian and then breatharian, but I really don't know if that's the case or not, because that was like thousands of years ago and he didn't really write much back then. But his disciples did write a lot. I think it was Plato or somebody. There's a quote, I think, in one of my books, one of my early books, that talk about how he refrained from eating flesh foods, but I'm not sure if they also meant dairy and eggs, because those times they didn't really talk about that. They didn't really talk about fruitarianism and breatharianism and all this kind of stuff. So I'm not sure, but if we research that, maybe we'll find something on him, or from his alive relatives, if he has any relatives alive.
Yeah. Who knows? Yeah.
So Mango, what else is there in Australia and your life now? I just want to check in to see if everything is well, everything is going well. Can you give us any updates about yourself? What's happening? You and Pietro?
Well, despite the fact that there hasn't really been any huge effect of the COVID here in Queensland, we're probably keeping more to ourselves than we have done. We just stay at home mostly. So we're at home. I'm in the garden, doing something, pruning the trees, or cleaning the dead branches up the trees.
Right.
Just trying to get food up and running. And apart from that, really, there's not much is happening. We kind of live in the same way as we always have.
Yeah.
I'm writing sometimes. She's going to be writing a book at some point, and I think, quite honestly, she's probably written the bulk of what she's going to write, but she's just taken a long time to round it off and get it published.
And is that in English or Czech language?
Written in Czech, but eventually she'll probably get it translated into English.
Right. Yeah, you can always get translators to do that for you somewhere. Yeah. Volunteers. Yeah. Because I've asked through Facebook with my books if anybody is willing to translate as a volunteer, translate the ideas. I give them the description of what the book's about, and then some of them are really eager because they just really want to help.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good. Yeah.
So Mango,
I know
yeah.
No, I was going to say that I've had somebody contact me recently and volunteered to translate my book. One of my books to German. Whether or not it will happen, but it will be very good. I would love to see a German version of it.
Well, you have already some of your books translated to different languages, right? I mean, we spoke about that before.
on Destination Eden, the first book, is translated into Spanish and Czech and Italian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like you said before, whoever really wants to learn, we will share the books to you for free. We will give them to you whatever, in whichever way you want. If you really want to learn, we are here. Mango and I are here to help you. I'm a spiritual coach or a spiritual life coach, which really connects people to their relationships, but not only their relationships, but their relationships to other beings and to the world based on the mind, body, and soul connection. And so if anybody really needs, some coaching sessions on that, on really learning how to have better relationships with their families, with themselves, to love themselves and their relationships more. I mean, I've had so many people in the past contact me depressed, and like I had one case where a gentleman talked to me and was like so desperate because he was ready to commit suicide. So I don't know if that was a fake thing or if he was really, wanting to do that or not. But I did what I could to try to help that person and see how that goes, So there's only so much we can do, Mango. Only so much time. I wish I could spend countless hours with you, but I know we have our own path that we live. And is there anything else you really want to say to people, like about this whole entire mess that we're in this world? Do you have anything you want to add?
I just think that it's so important as individuals that we hold no attachment to what other people are doing. I know that we want to influence everybody. I know that we want to change the world, but at the end of the day, everybody has to wake up for themselves. And all you can do is give people knowledge, but you can't make them understand it. Like you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make the horse drink.
Right. Because that analogy, basically, we don't own the horse.
Yeah, we don't own other people.
Exactly.
And I think it's very important for peace of mind in this insane world that we live in, that we understand that people are at where they're at, and you can try and help them see things. You can explain things to them, but we shouldn't hold any attachment to whether or not they embrace anything that we tell them.
Yes.
All we can do is where they're at, really. Love people where they're at. And
exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
The way I like to. Sorry.
Just don't. It's so important that we don't get hung up on the fact that things are so dire.
Right.
It doesn't help anybody.
Yeah, just do what we can, and be positive.
Yeah.
And I like the way my friend Will Tuttle talks about it. My mentor and dear friend Will Tuttle. If you want, you can go check out his books as well. He has the World Peace Diet and as well as Your Inner Island. So you can check out those books at worldpeacediet.com. And he said, all we can do, because we can never change anybody, we can only change ourselves. So all we can do is plant that seed and let it sprout. Do the best that we can. Just like we're gardening, do it with the most love that we can, and not with bad intentions or judgment or seeing them as a separate being, but seeing them as we were once. Because I remember how I was, and I was definitely not an ethical person in any way. I mean, in some respects, yes, of course. I mean, we love our parents, we love our friends, we love our, whatever, co-workers and so forth. But I just want to leave off with this message as well. And that is, I think the things that really, and I have a video about this, 2 or 3 things that really helped me as a vegan all these years. And next year, probably spring or summer, I'm not sure when exactly, but I'll be vegan 12 years. And eating, of course, now I'm eating as much food as I can, but sometimes in the given area or the cities or whatever, It may not be completely possible, so I tell people to do the best they can and to eat as much raw food as you can, fresh food. I'm not talking about packaged things, you know. Whatever that might be for you, if it's fruits or if it's including some vegetables or whatever, you know, and even slowly transitioning because some people are not even used to eating, regular vegan gourmet meals. But anything that people eat non-vegan, so things like chicken, roast, or whatever it is, pizzas, burgers, whatever it is, you can just put vegan in the beginning and recipe vegan, burger recipe vegan, lasagna recipe vegan, whatever. And again, whole food, fruit, of course, is the ultimate optimal thing. And Mango has the books to let you know why. And of course, these last interviews as well that we did. I will post down below also all the interviews that you did, Mango. But two things I want to really mention to people, and that really helped me in my journey, just as a spiritual journey, ethical, vegan journey, and that is positivity and love. Really helped me tremendously. Even though we may at times have challenges and we may at times not love people, but to love as much as we can other people, including ourselves, and to be as positive as we can, and trusting God or life process or universal force, whatever you want to call it, trusting that force that you have abundance and you're grateful for whatever you have. I mean, really, we come into this world with nothing and we leave with nothing. So really nothing here is ours, you know. I mean, I have a computer just to talk with Mango and to do my work, and that's really about it, you know. So I want to thank you again, Mango, for everything you do. And, I mean, you've really been a big help in my journey as a teacher, as learning about all this. Even though I knew in my heart that this was the right thing to do, it kind of reaffirmed it. And you're probably the only one that writes and talks about this openly, you know, in an ethical and spiritual way. A lot of people do it for health, and they talk about the health benefits of being whatever they consider fruitarianism, you know. But that's why I loved all that philosophy, everything that you teach about eating fruitarian. And that is the direction of my path and the community that eventually that I want to build. And if people want to learn more about that, we have a website. It's not fully it's kind of down, but we have a website that are links to, which is a forum, and people can learn and contribute to the ideas of creating vegan and raw vegan intentional or homesteading communities. And so that is peaceful-village.com. It goes to the forum, but the forum is basically forum.peaceful-village.com, and you can definitely sign up there and contribute to the ideas. I also want to mention that Mango's Wadzak's website again is fruitsnuts.net. I will put it in the link in the description below when I upload this video. And I don't know, is there anything else, Mango, you want to say?
I think we can leave the next to next.
Maybe we'll leave it to the next. Right, until the next interview.
Next video, next interview. Because there's always stuff that's the same.
Yeah, there's always things to learn and always things. I mean, I could go on, and it's always so hard to like, how do we end this, because there's so much I want to say, and I never want to end the friendship or end the conversation. Then I feel kind of sad, you know, that Mango's gone and I can't talk to him now. And but I want to thank you so much again for what you do. It's fruitnut.net. Please check out his work. Please check out my other videos. I know I haven't been really too active on YouTube lately or things like that, but I'm working still, wanting to create a vegan world, however that may be, and whatever my path is. We have all our own path to get there. So I want to thank everybody for being on here. I know this is a pre-recorded, so nobody's really listening, but I thank everyone who will watch it at another time. I'll post it hopefully within the next day or two. But thank you again, Mango, and much love to you and Pieta with all your endeavors, all your path and your books and everything. So much love. Thank you, Mango.
Thank you. Yeah. Peace to everyone.
Take care. Bye-bye.